Hello and welcome to Leviathan News. Today is August 1st. We're in a new month, a new life, a new vision, a new vibe. And it looks like we're out of the worst of it. Last night, it looked as if everything was just going into the gutter. Curve founder Michael Egorov was being pressed. The price of CRV was slowly declining, just crushing down over and over and over. The shorts were piling on inside of Binance, and open interest on the shorts was skyrocketing. And through the middle of the night here on the Eastern Seaboard, the price of CRV dipped down to 50 cents within a 20% move of Michael being fully liquidated. And the vibes are not good. The vibes are not good at all. And in the middle of the night at like 1 a.m., it became clear that Michael had struck a deal to sell a good portion of his CRV OTC to an unruly cast of characters that includes Justin Sun, DCF God, and others. And the day is saved. And here we are. And I want to welcome back on Dio from Llama Risk, who is also here today. And Garrett, DeFi Advisor, you as well.
Hey guys.
Too.
What's up, folks? Good to be here.
Mm-hmm.
GM.
So I think there was a lot of hand wringing yesterday. I know that I texted you, Garrett, with a couple of ideas about how Frax potentially could do some things. And you told me that you don't get the sense that he was as desperate as people make him out to be, and that he actually enjoys the attention. And it seemed to be that case because, you know, when he needed to, he threw out a lifeline and a bunch of people jumped on board.
Well, I've seen this play out now many times because I've been following Curve for a bit. This most recent thing is a repeat of exactly 1.5 months ago when the last shorters were hunting down Mitch and again got foiled. So at the time, I'd kind of compared it to Moby Dick, where they're trying to hunt the whale and they get driven mad by rage until it consumes and destroys them. But I realized the more apt analogy might be like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Where Elmer Fudd keeps hunting Bugs. Bugs keeps outsmarting and outwitting the hunter. And at the end of the short, everyone's memory is erased and they try it again at the exact next episode. It seems like the collective memory of crypto Twitter is that of a goldfish, and people forgot how this ended last time. And yet again, Mitch outwitted them and has staved off liquidation once again.
Well, he definitely has bought some time, and the terms of the deal were known on chain, actually, because Michael started to fire off like chunks of CRV in size of about 2.5 million and was getting back $1 million that he used to pay down his Fraxlin debt. And this was interesting because it wasn't just one person. There were several people that actually were a part of this OTC deal. Like we said, Justin Sun bought $5 million worth of Curve. DCF God bought $4.25 million worth of Curve. And then a whole host of other characters were buying smaller bits of Curve as well, too. And it looks like there was a gentleman's agreement, from what was reported, that this Curve would be, quote unquote, locked, or there was a honorable agreement not to sell for the next 6 months. However, if the price went above 80, realizing a 100% profit or 2x gain for these purchasers, then it would be okay. They could sell their CRV at that point if we went into the 80s. So it's created a nice little cushion for Michael to operate, because really he just needs time to receive more 3CRV income from Curve for everything to pass over and for him to kind of get his debt under control a little bit more. That's all he needed.
So there's a few things people don't know about Mitch. He's been a degen for a very long time. So I think it goes back to the Bitcoin era. Around 2018, he's essentially been living off of lending protocols, starting with Maker, basically supplying crypto, getting dollars. And back then, I think he needed to survive. Now he's giga wealthy, so he is, I think, mostly just doing it for fun. In that time, he's been playing around with nearly every leverage-based lending platform that he can find, and he's never suffered a liquidation, not even once, until very recently when he was testing CurveUSD and intentionally triggered a hard liquidation by going as degen as possible just to see what would happen. So he's very good at dodging this. He's very good at playing these games, and in fact, like, doing this is what gave him the, like, kind of like being a power user of these platforms is what gave him the idea for things like stable swap in the first place, because he needed ways of moving tokens around. And it's one of the reasons that he launched CurveUSD, because he finds it tiring when he has to like wake up in the middle of the night and rebalance his position slightly to stave off liquidation. He wants like a softer, friendlier liquidation mechanism so he can play with these protocols the way he likes. So that's my take on like what I've heard Mitch say about the whole situation. I've also heard some people say that he like could pay back at any time. He just kind of prefers the hunt. I don't know if that's true or not. So I don't lose sleep over it as a person deeply embedded in the Curve ecosystem.
So all of the major protocols that were associated with this trade are trading upwards off the lows. So Frax bottomed out at $5.10 and is now trading close to $6. Aave bottomed out at $62 and is sitting at about $64. And Curve traded at lows at 50 cents, and now it's trading at 60 cents. So definitely some respite from the negative forces of the market overnight. We'll see how long this can continue, and if there's another push downwards, or if this is just the end. Yeah.
The sad thing about it all is like in previous cycles, this played out often on the Curve ETH pool on Curve. But of course that got borked, which triggered this whole thing. So there could have been massive fees that would have been collected in other circumstances for people in that LP position. Oh, well.
Oh, well. Oh, well. Well, and that LP position would have protected. I mean, we never would have gotten this situation had that LP position still been here. So
yeah, and in my opinion, like the real interesting stuff was not so much the OTC deal that he struck. Like he probably just did that because he like kind of like sort of he was getting a lot of requests, I'm sure. The real interesting one was what played out on your favorite protocol of Frax. Like to me, like I saw this whole thing as him getting a lot of attention, getting everyone saying, "Oh, what's he gonna do? What's he gonna do?" Curve doesn't pay for marketing, but he got tons of marketing out of this. When he kind of dropped his Frax solution for Fraxland. So, Sam, I'd be curious if you could tell us a bit more about like the mechanics of Fraxland and what you saw in Mitch's move here.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people were getting Fraxland wrong, right? It is a lending product. It's an isolated lending product, and that means that you can only deposit collateral and then borrow whatever asset is on the other side. And for Fraxland, it's just Frax, and so Mitch had built up a position of about 25 million that he's pared down to, I believe, $17 million, maybe a little bit less this morning now. And so he had borrowed this position, and Fraxland works in a special way where, unlike Aave, where you have all these different collateral types, you have USDC, USDT, ETH, wrap Bitcoin, they all kind of subsidize each other, where if the borrowing gets too high on one, it gets subsidized by the lower rates of another. And it doesn't work that way in Fraxland. Fraxland has this special property where there's only one asset to borrow, right? And so as the utilization goes higher, the interest rates can spike dramatically. And Fraxland developer Drake Evans published a very nice post yesterday where he went into detail. We posted this on it, and he talks about how fast the rate can increase. Let me see if I can find this chart. So depending on where the utilization is, and for Michael, it had been right around 99% to 100%. His interest rates were increasing at close to 100% every 12 hours. And so his interest rates spiked up to over 100%. I believe they topped out at around 130 or 150% before he started paying down some of his loans. And this was all very worrying last night. none of us wanted to see Michael get liquidated just because of interest rates. And that wasn't the case. So he started to pay down his debt. The utilization opened up. But this was later in the evening. Earlier, one of the things that he did do is he created a brand new pool on Curve for CRV USD, where he took the lending token. So when you're a lender and you're lending Frax to Michael, you deposit it into FraxLend, and what you get back is this F Frax token. It's like a C token from Compound or a token from Aave, and essentially it's a receipt token that builds interest over time. And what he did is he said, okay, well, this receipt token is essentially a quasi stable coin. So I'm going to create a new pool on Curve USD that is going to pair Curve USD against these FFrax tokens. And I'm just going to put 100,000 CRV in here as rewards. And he did this, and it opened up. And the idea is that it creates more demand for this FraxLend FFrax token. The more FFrax token demand there is, the more Frax is going to flow into that, into his lending pool. And then he can essentially pair this in CRV USD. People can trade against it. And it also earns CRV rewards. Right now it's earning 50%, which I think is one of the highest rates across the entire platform. It's sucked in $6.2 million. And it's the first of its kind that I've seen where we've seen incentivized like CRV USD against a C token style asset inside of Curve. Now I know that Curve also has C assets in it. There's like a USDT pool on Curve, but this is something new and really interesting.
Yeah, it's very positive. I think it's quite an interesting design, because also people that want to exit the Frank's lending position, they can just exit via the pool instead of withdrawing. And there's a lot of very positive, something positive out of this as well. Mm-hmm. I think.
Yeah. So these like C token or A token pools were actually really popular back when interest rates were really high, but they kind of fizzled out. The Aave pool right now only has about $21 million, and I don't know what the Compound pool has, but they definitely have cooled off a little bit because the rates in crypto have been so low. And these C pools previously were just like 2 C tokens together or 3 A tokens together, and they would all earn interest together, and they would be traded back and forth. And it was an interesting concept, but it didn't really gain like a super amount of traction. This might, though, because like Michael seems to have insatiable demand for stablecoin borrowing.
Yeah, he knows. I think he plays this game first of all on quite a different level than at least 99.9% of participants. And I agree with CurveCap and you guys here that I think that behind the scenes, he pretty much knew what he was doing all along. And I know that the aspect that I like, the 2 aspects that I saw around all these stories, first of all, like how many people were it seemed like many people just like wanted Michael to fail. You know what I mean? It's like they kept talking about, oh yeah, he got mansions and that's what he does with the money, blah blah blah. And there was like a very like jealous vibe from what I felt, at least. Not like that's the situation in DeFi. That's actually an honest builder. Let's see what can happen. But many people they kind of chose the other side, in my opinion, of that. But the other side of that is just like you said in the beginning of the episode. Like the heart of the community still revolves, sure, again, in my opinion, around Curve. So a guy like Mitch can assemble guys like Justin and DCF God and the other people that were on this deal, because like quite a lot of the key figures within our space are not driven by jealousy or like a narrow eye. I'm not sure how you say it in English, but in Hebrew we say a narrow eye when you see someone succeeding, but you don't like you get mad because they're succeeding. It's like your eye is narrow in a way. So I think it's a very good demonstration of what both sides of the community feel about success in general of individual, at least great success, and especially on Michael's case. And I think we're on the good side here. What can I say?
Yeah, I would agree with that as well too. Like nobody wants to see Michael get liquidated. I think it may look a little uncouth to have such a large position that is so public, and I believe that I don't know. I think that
disagree. A lot of people did want to see him get liquidated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
a lot of
that's
people
true.
did want to see him. And I think some of the coverage, I'm not necessarily going to mention names, but I think that at least some of the coverage of this story that I saw wasn't very like fair, and quite honestly, I'm not sure it was always very like appropriate or very sophisticated. I think it was
of course not.
It was
I think
a
it was
gish
If
gallop.
you're paying 100,
It's referred to as a gish gallop.
He's gonna liquidate. Yeah, it's finally gonna happen. Like, why are you happy that that there is a situation with pretty much one of the most important DeFi protocols, if not most important of it all? Like, it really, I think, it was a good test in a way to see who really feels what in the space. So I kind of enjoyed that aspect of the whole story.
Oh yeah, I kind of enjoyed unfollowing accounts that I was like, oh, okay, if this is your take, you're probably going to provide some bad signal. But look, we're all like mostly on the same side about this. I feel like we like don't have much of a debate. We should bring on someone who is a curve shorter and ask them for some of their arguments. Maybe we could stage it in such a way so it's not like an unfair fight. I would be curious to hear everyone's thoughts though, because like this is like more in the realm of thought experiment, and it doesn't like matter if we're curve maxis or not. Like one of the like things that the death spiralers or the fudsters like to bring up is like, if Mitch got liquidated, curve would go to zero, they assert. I feel like that's in bad faith because these are people who presently assign a value of $0 to the curve token, insisting that it would be worth $0 if this happened. And I try and like go through but like it's just speculation, right? Nobody knows. So like my thought is, okay, like 300 million curve would get sold off quickly. It would find an equilibrium price and things would continue is like my take on it. But am I like naive? Like, cause like they seem to invoke this specter as like a dangerous event that is going to spell the end of curve. Like, what do you think would happen if Mitch did get liquidated?
Well, that governance power would be distributed across a lot of. I mean, it could be one player that sucks it all up. It could be a bunch of people that suck up that governance power, and I think that's the worry, right? Is that who knows what can happen if you have such a large amount of CRV falling into one person's hands? Like, what sort of how does the DAO change politically after that?
So yeah, agreed that the DAO would change politically, but like as a practical matter, like if it fell into the hands of like Lazarus Group, there's still enough VECRV locked amongst good players like Stake DAO, Urine, Convex that they'd be outvoting Lazarus Group. So
well, let's say it's not Lazarus.
Really
let's say Justin sucked all of it up, right? Right. Somebody who's like, how would we?
Just curve.
No, but on the morality scale, is he like lawful evil, or where is he at?
Well, Justin and Michael are good have a good terms, I think. Yeah.
He's his own special character. Like if Justin Sun got that much curve, like I think you'd see a lot more like USD D pools. You'd see what's his new stable coin?
STUSD.
You'd see a lot more STUSD incentives.
Well, where do we place? What's his moral alignment, right? Like,
yeah, I think we have that's what I said also in the beginning. I think we have a bit of an identity crisis, right? Like, who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? What are we fighting for? And why are we here, right? That's one thing.
There we go. I think he's
Yeah.
I think he's probably like neutral.
I'd say lawful neutral.
You think he's lawful neutral?
Yeah, he's lawful in that he plays within the system, right? Like
I would not. I'd be more of like chaotic neutral, or
I would say chaotic evil.
I wouldn't say evil. Chaotic evil is just out to destroy everything, right? I see him like Justin's really like on the edge of pushing things, and he's ensured that his network is one of the largest hosts of Tether, yet what Tether's being used for on his network is very distasteful in the eyes of like the authorities, which is quasi funding Iranians who want to buy dollars, or other like states which would find that distasteful. So and also like there's always questions about Tron itself and stuff, but I don't know. I think it's important. I think it should be a wake up call for the DAO to and also Aave as well too. I don't know what Aave can do. Maybe they take that gauntlet proposal that was put out a couple of months ago and actually double down on it and start to rein in his risk a bit more. I think Michael would be much better suited. I think the main look again. If Michael was purely in the Fraxlin protocol and not in Aave, we wouldn't really be having this discussion, because the way that Aave is set up is that there's a lot more protocol. There's like existential protocol risk to Aave itself, and not just the lenders. Because if Mitch were to get liquidated in Aave, like all of Aave would suffer. They'd have to sell off a huge amount of tokens to cover that gap and to essentially backstop any losses on that bad debt. But with a lending protocol like Fraxlin, there is no bad debt. Everything is just socialized across all the lenders, and that's it. You just get a haircut. You get some money back, but you take a haircut. And at the end of the day, like the interest rates can adjust based on what people think the risk is, which we saw. And I think it's a good thing. Like Aave is just not responsive to the market forces and risks that Michael has placed on it with his large CRV position. And I think he would be better suited to move it somewhere else where it'd be more dynamic in how that risk is adjusted. That's just me. We'll see what the Aave DAO does coming out of this.
Yeah, let's get Mark Zeller on this week and see if we can talk to him, because there's a lot going on with Aave.
Yeah, because the Aave guys originally were like, there's no way, like the Aave guys essentially said, there's no way that Michael can get liquidated. So we're just going to allow him to keep his position here. But now that CRV ETH pool is gone, that throws a big wrench into the equation of, one, there's not really a venue to liquidate any of his position, even gradually on chain now. Like that has to be rebuilt. And two, the overall protocol risk is for Aave itself has skyrocketed. And should they continue to endorse that sort of loan without that backstop of the CRV ETH pool?
Yeah, we'll have to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's highly risky for Aave to continue to provide this loan, especially in the size that they are. And personally, I would like to see him come to Frax. I mean, it's more protocol fees for us. If he becomes the largest part, if he moves that entire position, Frax, I'd be totally happy, because then the risk is isolated. The lenders that are lending to him understand what they're getting into, and they can adjust interest rates accordingly. And Aave doesn't have to like subsidize his large position anymore, which he's obviously used to take out tens of millions of dollars in loans.
Do you think this possibility is on the table?
I would be very like, I think we'll see something in the next few days. Gauntlet is definitely going to repost and be like, look what happened. He had to get it. Like now there's justification, right? Where it's not just that Michael was fine sitting in his position and nobody can sell enough CRV into it to actually get him liquidated. Now it was Michael was forced to sell and cut a sweetheart deal with these group of characters across all of DeFi and crypto. And this should be justification that Michael was getting to the point where he was getting pressed, and it wasn't just that they had this buffer and now we should reassess what the risk to the Aave DAO is, and try to bring that loan that he has down to zero, because sure, it's providing fees for Aave, but maybe that risk like greatly outweighs for the overall health of the Aave v2 protocol.
It's very interesting to see how, like, what kind of federation can come out of all this, like this whole story, because the connection that's gonna like live on and continue between the different protocols who are involved, and like the way they learn to work together throughout this and after this, I think it can affect a lot of stuff in our industry, because this should like be our lesson in a way, like we're so small as an industry, we should know how to play this game together and like support each other and see our shared goals, not just try to eat the other protocols lunch or whatever, you know what I mean? So because all these protocols, like they are very like essential to the like as DeFi infrastructure, and as we move forward as an industry and we try to grow, we really should be able to strengthen our bonds and build everything around it, like to make us much stronger than we are. Like I do think that we've shown quite a lot of resiliency with this one, and we did show the community aspect, but maybe we can even take it up a notch. And it's very interesting to see if this becomes more of a competition between the different protocols, or more kind of a synergy.
I do think that the Mitch saga points out the dark forest nature of this entire industry. Like as soon as anyone gets in the headlines, the knives come right out for him. So Mitch seems to enjoy when he's in the spotlight, but I don't know if everyone does. I'm pretty happy being essentially like so insignificant as to be in on.
Well, someone has to be the main character, right?
Yeah, true.
I wouldn't wish that fate on my worst
I think if you have big shorts open, of course you're gonna spread misinformation, right? If you pay 100% interest or whatever crazy amount on your CRV shorts, yeah, you're gonna FUD.
Yeah. How does Synthetic explain all this down significantly over the past few days? I mean, that's probably just a retrace of the move that they made. I don't think Synthetics has a huge exposure to Michael and Curve at the moment, other than what's in Curve.
Maybe it's, I'm sorry to interrupt, but maybe it's because Kane also has like a big house in Australia or something like that. So maybe
let's leave
maybe
the house.
it's outside of like people. Oh, this is a crypto founder with a big house in Australia. Sell it.
Well, look, I think that remember, like houses are usually bought. I don't know about the Australian housing market, but typically houses are bought on mortgages, right? And really, Michael just has to prove his income. And with the amount of 3CRV that he earns from his VCRV positions, it probably more than pays for the mortgages that he needs. It's not. He probably didn't even buy it outright.
Yeah, and he bought it in multiple batches. Like I think he initially had like a $20 million house and then added $20 million annex onto it.
Yeah, look,
so,
Curve revenue
on that.
Curve revenue is high. How much 3CRV does Curve pull in a day?
Yeah.
Let me pull up the fees tab.
Yeah, let's look at the
And
fees, because I think this is something that people miss. Michael doesn't actually have to sell anything. It's very rare that Michael just doesn't need to sell his 3CRV. For one thing, he can post a ton of it into VCRV forever to provide a lifetime of income to him that will far exceed anything that he would get for selling tokens. And then additionally, if he just needs cash, he can just borrow against his CRV. He doesn't actually have to sell. It's actually like detrimental to him to sell his position, because then he gets less fees and less access to borrowing.
And he has, right? Like the story is like he got this massive stash of Curve and is like, okay, what should I do with it? I'll stake some, I'll sell some, will like put some on Aave. And it just only during periods of like peak FUD that people decide to like come in and troll him on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here, I got a dashboard. Let's bring this up. Oh, you got it?
Oh, yours is much prettier.
Oh, okay, yeah, I went for the Dune dashboard. So let me just readjust this. Okay. So maybe you can walk us through this, Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that one right in the middle right there, curve.fi total fee earned, $111 million. So if Mitch has like a pretty decent percentage of that, like that's which he does. Like I don't know the exact numbers offhand, but a few percent, like that, that amounts to he's earned a few $1 million off of just his Curve fees. That's 3 Curve. That's cash. That's paid out in USDT, USDC, or DAI. So he's got his choice of what he wants to do with that. On top of like whatever else he makes, like from like trading around Curve, on top of all the ample Curve emissions that he gets, like he's set. He's loaded. That's what people don't realize.
The bribes and everything. Yeah.
The burbs. Yeah. The burbs are the lion's share of the VECRV revenues nowadays. And he's active on the vote markets. So whatever he's getting from just like the passive cash flow from trading fees, he's probably getting multiple of that in terms of the bribes.
Exactly. So again, he doesn't need to sell the CRV. I think a lot of people just don't understand the Curve ecosystem well enough. Look at this. It's pulling in, right? What's 600,000 a day, 500,000 a day?
It's per week.
It's insane.
Oh, per week. Still, that's incredible, right? And then
I'd take it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And yesterday, regarding these takes that I saw yesterday, like I saw at least one take, and for those who care, like I even tweeted about it, that it's like it was like presenting Michael as, he took a loan on Aave, and what he probably did with his money was buy mansions. It really made me like, come on.
Low IQ take.
Yeah. I'm not even sure it's low IQ as much as it's like, come on, man. Maybe check a bit more, or maybe just try not to be a populist, because I think it's a very like a populist take. It's a founder with mentions. Oh, it's obviously a scammer. Like if the guy was a scammer, he would already be like, he'd scam like a million times already from 500 different alt accounts and have more money than Satoshi, to be honest.
When Rex joined our Twitter space the other day, he pointed out that like Mitch like could just very easily like laugh and watch this all like burn to zero. Like that would probably be the short-term greedy thing to do, and he doesn't do that. So like we were like you should like feel very fortunate that that's like some good evidence he's a good actor in the space.
Yeah,
or he's setting up the longer rug pull. Who knows?
If you're not a good actor in the space, I don't believe that you can build something like Curve. Honestly, like you'd quit much earlier because you've made all kinds of money and bail out. Like you don't stay and become such a key figure in our industry. Like I don't buy that, and I really think like I think jealousy really made a lot of people put out some. Not that great takes about the whole situation, and definitely not with the right vibe. If we talked about vibes at the beginning of the stream of okay guys, like come on, what should be really hopeful? Also, by the way, I think that a lot of these takes were made by people who are essentially just traders. They're not really investors or really that much into DeFi. They just want to trade stuff, and obviously some of them, at least, I think, they have a specific interest in it. If they have a short position and they tweet about how they should be, like the coin should go to zero, like they have a financial interest in what they're saying. They're not just saying it because they think that's where the truth. They're trying to affect the truth.
I saw some people, I might have been jokes, but saying that they offered Mitch in private message to stop tweeting for $1 million. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's quite savvy on them. Like, might as well.
Well, we're going to be covering the situation as it continues to unfold. It's very complex, and we hope that Curve is able to get back on track. Actually, let's talk about the postmortem. Can you bring that up, the llama risk postmortem, and maybe Dio, you can walk us through what you guys published yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
So this was actually a very fast turnaround for getting a postmortem done. But it was probably pretty clear since there were so many eyes on it at this point. And
well, hands off go to Wormhole and his support. He carried most of it by himself, I would say. So it's always some heroes in the Curve risk team that are not that visible, but it's amazing how fast it was published.
Right. So they identified a bug within older versions of Viper compiler that caused a failure in a security feature used by a limited set of Curve pools. And we also have a new guest, Chanho. Welcome.
Chanho, also from Llama Risk.
I got raised my ire, so I felt the need to ping Garrett, and he's like, "Come on this show." So.
Well, you joined at a good time.
Hello.
We were just going through the llama risk postmortem. Maybe we could get your guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah, hopefully I can add some color, but I've not like investigated deeply into it beyond what I did like when it first happened. So, but I might be a little bit more technical than some of the other people. I could say something.
Yeah, but you were pretty fired up about the last segment where we were talking about, like, as you put it in the DM, people just make stuff up about Mitch and like Curve and everything.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for example, look at the Frax interest rate. I mean, you go to this thing and, it's a great protocol. I mean, actually, I think that the pages they have are very nice. Like, they display a lot of info. But frankly, it's a little complicated. There's like a half-life, 5 times 10 to the 35th power. What does this mean? Vertex utilization. Like what is this, right? And then you go to the help page, and it clearly has like examples. They're not like real examples. So it's hard to make any of this. Now, if you're a famous influencer, at this point, you just have plausible deniability or something. You just take random numbers off the help page, say it doubles every 4 hours or whatever. But according to Frax, it's never been 4 hours. It's always been 12 hours. I mean, of course, it's a little, to be fair, docs are a little confusing because, like, why do they have 4 hours? It's always been 12 hours. But at the same time, it says as an example. I mean, there's not much on the page, actually. It is a little complicated. But actually, even that page, I mean, this is the state of DeFi, too. So I don't want to, point fingers at just maybe one people. I can just point like little fingers at everyone, right? But if you look at that page, like borrow APY is like 120, you actually go to the app to put in collateral like CRV, and you'll see it's like, I think it's like 83% now. So I asked on Frax like why it's not displaying correctly. But anyway, like, I'm 80% sure it's wrong, but I can't say because I haven't looked into why the equations, like why it does that. I would need to probably spend a day, which I'm sad, but to be fair, this is why influencers don't do it, right? They would need to actually spend a day. I mean, they could send out 50 tweets, or certain other influencers could, 50 times 20, right? Send out that amount of tweets per day, right? Right. So, why would you spend a day studying that? Instead, it's easier just to kind of tweet out false information, right? So I guess what I'm saying is you see that. I mean, and then I was not aware of, but some people were arguing, I guess, with Noor, the founder of Inverse, right? Like, and they were claiming like, look, I go on 1 inch, there's only $600,000 worth of CVX CRV liquidity. But 1 inch is routing through the wrong pool. You actually go to the CVX CRV pool on Curve, and there's like millions of dollars of liquidity.
It's referred to, I believe, as a Gish Gallop, which is you just flood the zone with so many false claims, it's impossible it takes so much time to refute just a single false claim that you can't possibly refute the entire like stream of false information before they've like flood the zone with yet more.
Gishkalb. That's a good one.
It's a debate term.
Yeah. If you go to the Frax website itself, you can also see that the borrow rate is different than the Frax Facts website. So, I mean, it's hard to display the exact
Could
data.
be a subgraph issue. I mean, I fortunately, I think Drake just got married, and so he's away at the moment, or else he would be on this podcast today. We were actually trying to get him on, but he just is on his honeymoon.
Yeah,
What
sorry.
are your priorities, Drake?
Exactly.
I don't know what I cut out, but I don't know what part of my rant I was cutting out. Did you hear the part about CVX CRV or?
Oh no, we
Yeah,
didn't
we
hear
got
any of
that.
that.
Yeah, we got CVX CRV, the liquidity in the pools.
Yeah, I mean, but anyways, the point is like, first off, people don't seem to. I guess there's two problems. One is DeFi, sort of infrastructure to look at stuff. Like, for example, 1inch is people see it as this very reliable service, and it is, but it makes mistakes too. Like there's still manual work, I guess, to set up routes and things. It doesn't always find the lesser tokens. Even if CVX CRV has millions of dollars of liquidity, it's small compared to obviously like Tether or something, right? So there's going to be glitches, and then you go to protocol websites, there's going to be glitches, and then people, and then it's complex. So you have all these issues, and then you have people who are just motivated to just tweet stuff, cause panics, and then people wonder why it's volatile, right? But I think there's a, I don't know. For me, this highlighted the issue of, you basically have these very influential people who are respected because they're seen as whales or whatever, or like big players. And then they're just like as helpless actually as a guy on the street. They just go on these websites, they look at some number that's like stale or something, and then they just say a bunch of stuff. They look at some equations, they don't get it. They just read something off whatever's there. Could be a Medium article, could be official doc. And this is like what drives. So like in a way, it's bad to be right curve. You should just be very left curve, right? You should, in crypto, you should just be like, oh, someone be like, oh, that's Aave V2 or something. I don't care. It's Aave. Just short everything with the name Aave in it.
I'm putting all my money into Hex.
Well, yeah. The thing about this whole Aave situation is that I think there's just like weird incentives for them to keep this position open for as long as possible, and to skirt the line between, to keep it not from being liquidated, but have it pay out like fees over time. We'll see what happens. Again, like we'll see what happens with like the gauntlet response after this, as well as whatever internally comes out. Maybe they get scared and push Michael out. But I think there definitely has to be taken a look at these position sizes and the ability to liquidate it. That's something that's done internally, usually by the DAOs and their governance processes. And we'll see if there's any major changes across any of the lenders towards providing huge amounts of credit for Michael. But now if everything is good and Michael doesn't get liquidated, then we seem to be on a good path, right? Where CRV's token price is going to be fine. It will recover. Frax should be adding its liquidity back here in the next few days. TVL and Curve will go back up to like 2.5 billion or something like that. And then hopefully we start to see TVL increases after that, after there's a full review of the Viper compilers.
More time to build.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because
are we really out of the woods officially now? Like, can we say that?
Financial advice, people. Not financial advice. Come on.
Yeah, of course. But like, relatively, like.
Well, I think the on-chain liquidity needs to be a bit more healthy before we can say those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's too early to say. It's a nice reprieve, but things still could happen over the next month or so. I don't think there's any more that, well, hopefully there's no more threats to any of the other pools. And usually, like, once there's a hack like this, it brings so many eyes to whatever the issue was. So in this case, the Viper compiler, that another hack like this won't happen again. But it is unfortunate, it's just like July was a bad month for Curve. We had the Curve hacks. We also had the Conic hacks as well too. And so, the narrative has switched into a like bad vibe place where it wasn't before. Curve was always like the bastion of good vibe neutrality. So I think it's going to take a few months for trust in the protocol to come back and TVL to come back along with it. So Sunny asks, when will the Frax liquidity come back to the Curve pools? So there's an internal audit that's being done, as well as the postmortems that are being done by like the Llama Risk team and everyone else. The Frax team is just ensuring that the current pool configurations that they have are completely fine and safe, and that there's no issues like there was that occurred with the recent exploits. And once it passes everything, then it will be all the liquidity that is protocol owned will be moved back into the Curve pools. I think it should be within a week or so, maybe a few days, depending on how fast the internal audits go.
And no one's asking when I'm going to move my liquidity back, but if you're looking for that $100 boost, should be re-aping soon.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So I would like to see a positive outcome out of this. Usually, I mean, we had these huge sellouts, right? So maybe there's enough people that bought and will hold for the long term that we can see a good price recovery in Curve. But I think it's going to be dependent on the TVL as well too, because we're still in PvP mercenary mode.
Yeah, it's really tough to say what the lesson is. Getting back a bit to the postmortem, like there's some like on the technical side of things, like I think most people are now convinced don't handle raw ETH, go with wrapped Ethereum. So there's like little things like that. But I'm curious, like, because we have two of the risks team here, like, what would be your takeaways? Like, is there like things that you think in hindsight were clearly done wrong that like should be addressed or shouldn't be done again? Guess not.
That's a big question. I don't have a direct answer to. I think we're still in. The post-mortem is a reflection, and I think we, as a community, need to reflect more. And I think we need to have better funding models. That's been discussed multiple times, right? Better funding models, better ways to check everything, and also realize that building DeFi is more harder than it seems. Maybe these protocols are very hard to build, so we just need more eyes, more time, more audits. Although Curve did it in a very good way, so yeah, it's a bit too early to tell. I would say some more reflection. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I guess I'm sort of on the record now, literally, but I do feel like that design is I've been thinking about it. Someone can correct me, but I don't understand like why there's multiple locks needed. Like Solidity devs don't seem to need it. I don't think I've ever seen a case where I'm like, I would like to have you re-enter my contract, but not, but only through certain doors. Like when I write my function, or my contract, I have a certain idea of certain variants, certain things are adjusted only when certain other things. And then like, I certainly don't want to think about like, this guy can now re-enter through this other door, but only this other door. So like, I've never seen that like in any real use case. I could be wrong, but I don't think any of the major protocols have like multiple. So I kind of wonder like, is this like an important use case? Like, why is it there? Like, it seems like a very marginal, but I think there's honestly like, it's not just Viber, right? It's like a very common like attitude in the space, right? Like I pointed out, for example, like the Euler hack is because someone decided it was fine to update audited contracts to allow, and then people kind of point to some specific thing, right? But people forget about like the Toyota philosophy or something. Toyota has like this philosophy of like 3 whys or something. It's like, you know, they always have something like as a proverb or something. It's like when you ask why, then after you get the answer, you ask why again. You ask why 3 times or something. But, you know, when the oil hack happened, people were like, oh, they should have done this or they should have got audited. But like, I think I'm the only one that asked, you know, why was this even a feature? Like, why change your contracts to let people donate dust? It's dust. It's not like seen as a problem, you know, like a major problem, right? Like, so it's just like a bad decision. So it's like, why do something extremely risky? And you have to view this as risky. Like every upgrade you make to your contracts, no matter how minor, is extremely risky, right? You wouldn't want to fly on an airplane where they're like, oh, this light blinking is a little bit annoying. You know, if we make it a different color, we're going to just update the firmware on all the parts. You would be like, what? Why are you doing that? That's just like a minor thing. Like, don't endanger the safety of, you know, people on the plane, right? But, you know, I think you kind of have to think of everything like that. And I think even Solidity, right? The reality is like Solidity just has much more development and money behind it. But I think you see the same thing with Solidity over time. Like they just even removed, I believe they removed features, right? You know, but you know, that's the kind of, I mean, they also added features, so who knows? But I think that's the thing you have to always be concerned about. So I'm not convinced, you know, it's hard to compare projects. I think maybe the only reasonable thing to say is there's a lot more funding for Solidity, more eyes, right? Everything gets scrutinized way more. It's hardened more. So unfortunately, it's sort of like one of those situations where when something's battle tested enough and then it reaches enough kind of critical mass, then you just have like 100 times as many people looking at something. So it will sort of inherently be more secure. Like you could look at like web browsers or JavaScript or, you know, these different things. Like people always wonder like how secure these things are. Like, it's, you know, you could have built something more secure as a web infrastructure, but now the way it is, even with these sort of tools that are probably not the most secure, you know, for web development, there's so many people viewing it, right? But even there, stuff still happens, right? There's still exploits.
So Quant says in comments asking a question, why does it Viper had so few big brains on it with so much money put on contracts built on it? Like, my answer would be that like compiler dev is really, really tough and there's no money behind it. It's not sexy. Like it's like getting down into weeds with like opcodes and no VC is funding it because there's no return. So there's like not the chance of making millions or billions of dollars off of a compiler. I don't know. Chan Ho or anyone has any thoughts on that?
Well, I would say it's as uncommon as people think. Even if you look at like Linux or, you know, open source software, it often is the case very critical. I think you can even find a meme on it. I saw someone, a dev, you know, put a meme on it on Twitter where they're like, you know, had some picture of critical infrastructure, everything, and it's like they show one guy at his desk, like everything relies on this one guy. You know, but it's the same thing. There was like an exploit, these different exploits that even happen for, I think like OpenSSH was one, or I think there was even an exploit in the bash shell. I don't know if people want to know what the bash shell is, but that was like the default shell in you know, in Macs for a while, and it's ubiquitous. It's on like sort of almost every like Linux system, right? Or, you know, so like a lot of them, right? But you know, there's how many people are working on the bash shell, and it's like such an old piece of software too, right? Like decades old, you know, like, so I think it was written in the 80s, you know, as one of the first kind of GNU tools or something like that. But anyway, it's, you know, it's not glamorous, right? Like people, you know, so it's like hard to answer, but I guess, I don't know, maybe think of it like, I'm not trying to excuse it or anything, but just think about like everything in general. I think people are very confused about how many things actually rely on just a few people, right? You think your bank account, at these major U.S. commercial banks are safe? Like I work at a few of these, like, so I know in the end a few things, like guy protecting your data or whatever, it just relies on just a handful of people. And if they die or go on vacation or something, like there's a lot of issues. So the world actually doesn't run on this like full team of, I would be very surprised. Like I've actually heard from people that work for AWS, that people would be very surprised to know how many people are actually running the core of AWS, like the brains, right? Like the ones that would know the internal so deeply. If there's some security issue, they'd be able to fix it. And like, I'm not talking about all the sales people or all the people that sort of do all this kind of less deep work on AWS, right?
Mhm.
It's a lot of tech actually. So it's not an excuse, but I think, it's just like anything else. Like how many people were really designed on making sure, your appliances were safe.
Yeah,
But
my friend here, my kid plays with, is a product owner at a like a bank, right? Just a regional bank, larger regional bank, and he says their tech stack is just incredibly expansive. Like he's working on APIs, and I don't even think the bank knows how many APIs they have connecting into the bank. Like there's just all this old code, but like for DeFi, it works a little bit differently, where there's like one piece. Like we rely on like a couple of contracts for everything, and it's really unfortunate when there is this kind of like level of exploit that takes place, because there's no going back, right? Like in a bank, you can just undo the funds or like undo the transfers potentially, refer it to law enforcement and get them wrapped up. But with these crypto ecosystems, you don't have that. I do want to bring up a event that did take place. We didn't really talk about this yesterday, and this was the BlockSec post, where they essentially came out and posted the 3 different Viper compiler versions that were at issue. And so there was multiple people that called them out, like DeFi Llama, JP Lefteris, and a few others, saying, like, why would you post this information in the middle of an ongoing exploit that could be used by black hats? Did you guys see this during the day? What specifically was Supremacy HQ and then BlockSec as well?
I just saw the DeFi Llama tweet after it. I think we talked a bit about it on our space, Cap, right?
Yeah, just very briefly. But I don't think like when I brought it up, like everyone had the full context. So it'd be good to bring that discussion back now.
Yeah, so they essentially said, oh, hey, we tried to reach out and DM the Curve team and we weren't able to do it. So we're just going to post it publicly on Twitter. And
yeah, I mean, we know that like multiple white hack recovery attempts were foiled like by mere minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows, was this what like tilted it?
It was a bit weird. The previous tweet, if you go back, the other one, they retweeted it with a little bit of an aggressive message, I would say. I don't remember exactly what they said, but it was a bit like defensive. They were like, what are you talking about? Like they were very defensive about it.
So they cannot curve
maybe it is
DM, or they cannot DM Curve Finance on Twitter because the DM is not allowed. Why don't you just go to the Telegram or the Discord, right? So
there's no clout there. Only clout in public.
Exactly. It's like a lot of these like security teams, they all get referred internally, and there's no reason to like build bad blood within the industry. You want to be like on very good terms and have these like private communication channels.
Do you think it's really about clout, Garrett? Like, was that is that a possible consideration? Wanting to tweet about it first?
Yeah, it is. It's crazy, but that's the era we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I agree.
We've talked about that. We've been like at Leviathan, we're like, oh, let's break this story. Let's be the ones that get the the most likes for getting out first.
Yeah, for sure. Any media aspect of things wants to deliver the news as early as possible. Yet this is not like Blocksec is not a media agency. You know.
Yeah, one thing that I think there is a way to do it.
Maybe they should pivot. Right?
So I think there is a way to do it, and like be respectful about it. Sometimes all it takes, like I think PeckShield does a moderately good job of breaking these transactions. Typically, they just say like, "Oh, hey, Protocol X, check out this transaction." Like you've just been rugged. But while not getting into like the deeper aspects of it until they've communicated with the team, and they've also like identified that the vulnerability is not existing anywhere else, and then they come in and post the issue usually.
Yeah, I think it's a very important lesson to take out of it, and I definitely hope that everyone's intentions were good.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that what can you talk about this, like Garrett, can you talk about this Curve War Room?
I wasn't a member of the Curve War Room, so unfortunately not. I know that like my pay grade's obviously a bit too low to get in the real exclusive chats. Maybe Chanho was there.
Okay, so our favorite troll, Napgener, posted up, since they reposted the thread with different wording, I'll say it again. Cross-reference everyone in the CRV War Room to everyone in the Alchemix War Room. You'll find your criminal there. I'm guessing there was a lot of back-channel communication that was happening, and Napgener is implying that somebody there took this information that was out and essentially front ran the white hats that were going after them. But maybe that's not the case. Conspiracy hat time. Bring out the conspiracy hats on. Let's bring it up. Here we go. There we go.
Last wild
All
mass
right.
guessing, everyone. Who's,
Well,
I like
which
the
acting sus?
conspiracies? Which conspiracies? Are we talking about authorities or VCs or?
No, we were saying that there was somebody in the Curve or Alchemix War Room which gained this information that was being talked about in private channels and used it to front run the teams.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised. Like, there were multiple rooms, but so I don't know what specific raw room it's referred to.
Yeah,
and yeah, it was. Yeah,
This is something that can happen, right? Like maybe someone even is offered by different parties, like
Well,
give us some information, something like that.
let's not get too deep in the weeds on this conspiracy. Like, there's no evidence that it's happened yet, but there is rumblings about it. All right, let's move on to some other news. We had a bunch of other
chemtrails.
stuff.
Let's talk about chemtrails and flat Earth.
it's probably click farming.
So the other big, okay, so there's actually a couple of other big news stories. The big one being that Richard Hart, aka Richard Schuler, was charged by the SEC with securities fraud for Pulse Chain and Hex and all sorts of other stuff. And he's looking at life imprisonment from all of this. It's really unfortunate. So here's the SEC tweet. Pull this one up.
And did you guys see the response? He responded.
Oh, he did.
Did you guys see that? Or?
Did he?
Yeah, he responded. It's like it's like a 3 minute video or something. I can see if I can find it.
Can we share it here? Like, we won't be we can.
Yeah. It's actually very cringy. I would say it's the Richard Hart technique. What he's doing, he's playing the victim. He's like, I protect all the protocols, and all other protocols, they rock everybody, and I'm a good protocol.
Yeah. So obviously Eric Wall was out with the not celebration, because Eric Wall posted this, and then later on he essentially took everything down and said, Richard's looking at jail time forever. Actually, this was a funny interaction. Let me see if I can find this. Martin Shkreli essentially came out and told him, look at the amount of points that's there based on the federal sentencing system, and based on that, he's looking at life in prison. And then he was like, oh, okay. Yeah, here we go. So Shkreli, let's go through this. So Shkreli was like, no Fed charges for Richard Hart win. And he's like, we don't know if there's another parallel SDNY case. He doesn't like to speculate too much on friends, ex-friends going to jail. Shkreli's like, I rather no one go to jail, especially for financial crimes. But that's not the way the world works. I can't imagine the DOJ not copy pasting this into an indictment. He'll be looking at life. And Eric Wall's like, are you serious? Habibi, please elaborate. Shkreli comes back and says, well, if you look at the page 90 of the sentencing guidelines, he's already at greater than 40 points, which if you look at the sentencing chart in the same PDF is recommended life sentence. With all the victims, it's a rough situation if he gets cuffed. And then he's like, I understand it. Thanks. This sent me through a shockwave of emotions I was not expecting. So,
Well,
you know, the thing is, like, Richard's a really smart guy, and I think he does a good job of explaining the crypto space really well. Like, he's very, very, very smart. But then he wraps in all of his Hex stuff, the Hex promotion into it to leverage that, and, you know, was able to raise $1 billion. It's just crazy that, like, Richard raised $1 billion through the sale of Hex and Pulse Chain and whatever else he was doing. And on the other hand, the EOS guys, Block One, raised $4 billion over a longer period and walked away with what, a $24 million fine? Gets to keep all the money that it raised as well too. Crazy stuff. Like it.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Slap
exactly
on
what
the-
he's saying in his defense. He says, I shared it in the chat. He says in this response, he says like, yeah, but look at EOS and look at this and look at that.
Is this his highest stakes movie?
And he made a movie about himself as well. It's weird because the SSC announcement comes out 2 days before the movie is released, so it's kind of funny.
Conspiracy
Yeah.
hat.
But I think it all makes sense. So I don't know. To me, like people don't like to hear it, but like I think the SEC, like given sometimes what they're fighting is rather nebulous, right? It's sort of for protection of people. It's sort of nebulous sometimes what this means. You know, it's like protecting the economy, right, by destroying it or something, like the Fed. It's sometimes a little seems counterintuitive. I think. Like what you sort of proclaim as your intention is like very important, right? Actually, it's important in general, I think, in legal literature, right? Like whether something's an accident or purposeful. And so you have EOS who apparently, you know, were smart enough to hire former SEC lawyers and then just sort of kind of make it very clear it's useless, you know, just proclaim, even though it seems like a weird defense, you know, from the beginning. And then I think maybe they all wore suits or something. I don't know. I've not actually seen pictures of these. Maybe they all wore suits. And then you have Richard Hart wearing this kind of funny attire, wearing bling bling and stuff. You know, I think that I don't think you can say that doesn't affect the SEC perception, right? Like if you're going to go after a guy for protection, you know, of the public, the guys in the suits are probably okay, right? I mean, there's a reason. Nassim Taleb actually pointed this out, like in one of his, like I think in the Black Swan or something. And it's such a trivial observation, but for some reason I found it mind-blowing, which is, I guess, is often the case with Nassim Taleb, at least in his early years. But like he said something like, "There's a reason bankers wear suits," you know. And for some reason, I was like, "Oh wow, this is like extremely profound, you know, statement." But at the same time, if you've ever gone into a bank branch and you've seen kind of how they kind of portray themselves and everything, despite even sometimes messing up, you know, like if they mess up your accounts or something and you're going in there, like they, you know, they dissipate a lot of the mistrust or whatever by just presenting everything very nicely. It's like service very important for bankers, you know, and wearing a suit. But Richard Hart, yeah, if you go in and, you know, you see Richard Hart as your banker, as your personal banker, I don't think you would be, you know, feeling very good.
See why I used to wear a suit for my daily updates? So get out of jail free card.
Those
Yeah,
were the days.
Yeah, maybe public trust in you might have been higher.
It
with the
was, yeah.
suit. I mean, we can't measure it, but it could still be very high. I'm not, don't get me wrong, but it could
Right.
be that, lowering your tire.
New Leviathan dress code. Tomorrow morning, we'll all be here with suits on.
I liked your suit. It was good, more
You
professional.
could you guys could all do it as a joke, though. You could wear one of those things that like have an opening in the back, and you could show yourself kind of getting in it at the beginning of each to kind of show you're still keeping it real. This is like a joke for you. But then anyone sort of watching clips would just see you guys in these nice suits.
Maybe we should dress up like Richard Hart. Like, have everyone like with fancy suit, fancy like colorful suits and Lambos, and then like we can have quite a trailer for the show.
Oh,
I think we need to go back to the bull market. Oh, there's guys.
Oh, one thing I think you guys all need though is definitely everyone famous sort of like does it, right? Everyone like, Balassi, Bill Gates, they all have these bookshelves behind them, right? You gotta
have a bookshelf.
You gotta have a bookshelf.
Sailor has a massive bookshelf.
Yeah,
Mine's
and
gonna be like,
has,
where's Waldo in coloring books though?
He also has like a wooden boat there or something like that, right?
He does, yeah, in his Miami house.
Maybe a wooden boat.
Well, I think there is some stuff that's happening with the Richard Hart case. We're gonna have to get Alex Golovitsky to come back on, because obviously the SEC is making a bunch of claims in the charge document that would have wider effects on the crypto industry, essentially calling the issuance of Pulse Chain an unincorporated entity. Same thing for Hex as well too, which is like some critical legal stuff that will affect how teams launch and how they form companies later on. But
about Richard Hart, I think it's very important. It's very easy for people to like retail people and like the common folks to see someone with all this fancy stuff and like he's definitely intelligent, but he's also very narcissistic. And it's very easy for people that don't know what they're doing to bet their money with him. And definitely, I think it wasn't the right choice. And hopefully some people can get their money back, although I don't see how.
Yeah. Well, in other news, we had a couple of hacks. Leet Swap, the DEX that was on Base was rugged. There was some malicious code that was changed. They said it was a solidly fork, but there definitely was a couple of transfer functions that were intentionally changed.
Well, I don't understand. This is based on like a KYC change?
No. It's just there was a one-way bridge that was open to Base where people could bring ETH in, and they started bringing ETH and then doing all sorts of fun stuff with, typical token degen stuff. Leet Swap was launched as the primary DEX on the exchange, but they rugged it with code that they inserted into it that allowed them to essentially transfer all the assets out to themselves. We also had some other big news. The IRS issued a ruling stating that staking rewards are taxed as ordinary income upon receipt, which is quite interesting. They say that as soon as you control the staking rewards, it counts as ordinary income. There's a lot of questions about this. I mean, it makes a little bit of sense. Like as soon as you receive money, sometimes if you're like paid, then it does count as ordinary income. But like, what happens if there's slashing risk? Does that count as like an ordinary loss? Like, there's a lot of questions around this IRS ruling. I think one of the big consequences of it is that it's going to incentivize heavily people to move in these like wrapped LSDs, where all the income that you receive is essentially passed through the protocol, and you just hang on to this one asset, which then collects the yield over time. And then you just pay capital gains on the difference of what you invested versus what you took back. Yeah. But again, that's an American issue. Obviously, in other parts of the world, it may not be like that.
more people might be moving out of the US if it goes on. Like
No,
that,
I don't think
right?
so. I mean, like, I think people just get pushed into LSDs. Like, you just buy some like Frax ETH or Steth or I don't know, whatever the LSD product is, and then you don't have to worry about anything. You can just hold that one asset. It appreciates in value, and then when you're ready to sell, you just sell and take capital gains on the difference in price.
Like, no matter what the guidance is, people are going to build around it.
Yeah. So that was also, that's going to have some wide ranging effects. I think we'll see a bunch of legal posting on that over the next few days. We also had some funds returned to Curve. So Coffee Bag sent 955 Metronome staked ETH to the Metronome treasury. So ETH NFT volumes hit 2-year lows. And then also volatility shares issued an ETH ratio, or sorry, they went to go file a ETH futures contract, despite a bunch of either withdrawals or disapprovals from other filers. Right now, the only way to short ETH institutionally is to use that ratio contract that just launched. But I don't know if people, that would essentially allow you to like hold Bitcoin spot and then short ETH if you thought that ETH was going to go down over the long time. So, oh yeah, one thing that we're going to finish off with, Mark Zeller put out an interesting post saying the crypto trader law about founders: sell tokens, you're scammer. Lock tokens, scammer taking all the protocol revenue. Uses collateral, scammer doing reckless leverage. Price goes down, scammer doing slow rug. Some anon out there really expects founders to live off of ramen noodles.
I think it sums up quite a lot of what we discussed.
Yes, it does. And it's a good place to end on. Chano and Dio, I want you to thank you guys for coming back. Dio, you're making your second appearance. Chano, this is your first. Garrett, DeFi Advisor.
Happy to be here, guys.
Yeah, glad to be on. Thanks for having me, and glad to see Deo sort of in person, although I'm hidden.
Yeah,
Not
good to see you
presentable.
again. We met each other in New York, I think. Right?
No, we didn't. But
Oh,
That other channel.
we were in New York
day.
together, but yeah, one day.
Yeah. I actually didn't know you were. Yeah, I guess you must have come to F New York. I was supposed to kind of drop by for a while, but then anyway, yeah, some other time.
Yes.
Yeah. So we will be back tomorrow for Wednesday, the 2nd of August. But until then, Squid and Squidettes, enjoy the tides and the surf. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
Goodbye.
All right, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.